Fettuccine alla Papalina.
A traditional Roman dish, less popular than carbonara, from which it derives, but just as tasty. If you prefer to watch this recipe in the original Italian, head over to Piatto, our Italian channel. Our Italian recipes are Italian approved. A dish that was created at the request of Pope Pius XII, who wanted a lighter and more sophisticated version of the carbonara itself. The cook's idea was to replace the bacon with prosciutto. This is a prosciutto from Norcia, by the way. There is also butter, an onion for the sauté, Parmigiano instead of pecorino cheese, and obviously we also need eggs and some beautiful handmade fettuccine. There are no peas or cream, two unnecessary ingredients that, alas, even in Rome sometimes appear in this dish. But here we remain faithful to the original and won't be adding them. Let's start making the nice onion sauté.
Ok, allora iniziamo facendo il bel soffrittino di cipolla,
called a soffritto in Italian, to which we will then add our prosciutto. And here's our beautiful onion. We'll mince both halves.
la nostra bella cipolla. Ok, adesso facciamo l'altra metà. Pronta.
Let's move on to our Norcia prosciutto.
Ok, e passiamo al nostro prosciutto di Norcia.
Let's start with a slice and see how much it weighs. Then eventually we can add a little more if needed.
Guardate quanto è bello. C'è...
Look how beautiful it is. Just a little bit of fat. The thickness is just right for this dish. About a half a centimeter, maybe a little more.
Saranno circa 100-120 grammi.
One slice of this weighs around 120 grams, about 4 ounces.
Le facciamo più o meno della stessa larghezza, ma...
Now we just cut it into strips. Here we're making them more or less the same width, but in short, a little variation is always good.
Così che preserva la lama dei vostri coltelli.
Always use a soft cutting board, as we are doing here, in order to preserve the blade of your knives.
È fantastico. Questi adesso li taglio.
We decided to make this extra rich, and so we're adding 200 grams, or 7 ounces. Forget all of this goodness when you go to the restaurant. You'd be lucky to get 20-30 grams of prosciutto a plate.
Quindi andiamo avanti, facciamo il resto.
But we'd like to treat ourselves well.
È buono. Ma sì, facciamolo tutto. 2 etti.
Okay, we've put the pasta water on to boil. Now let's prepare the beaten eggs. It's similar to the way we prepare eggs for the carbonara.
Ok, abbiamo messo l'acqua a bollire e adesso prepariamo il battuto di uova.
We put 1 egg yolk per person, plus a whole egg for the pan. This is how we always do it.
Più un uovo intero per la padella. Noi facciamo sempre così.
With our beautiful whites, we can even make a meringue.
Con i nostri bei bianchi ci facciamo una meringa.
In fact, we'll link to our video on making Swiss meringue for those who want to accept the challenge.
E poi un uovo intero.
Looking good. Here's the whole egg.
Ale.
And now we just whisk it all together.
E adesso iniziamo a unire il tutto.
Don't be afraid to use the white. Despite what some novice cooks think, the white is not our enemy here. The conalbumin in the whites helps to create a very velvety sauce. Just remember that the eggs in this will begin to coagulate at a temperature of about 63 degrees Celsius, and that's about 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The coagulation, however, is always a process that takes place by degrees, and we have absolute control. Therefore, we decide how much to make it coagulate or how much to make our cream thick when it goes into the pan by controlling the heat. And here's a little secret. If we add salt, and we have to add it in any case here, we will increase the minimum temperature at which our mix will begin to coagulate. That lets our sauce cook a little bit longer without turning into scrambled eggs. Remember though that this egg still won't reach the temperature considered absolutely safe for consumption by the FDA. We'll cover how to pasteurize egg for carbonara in another video. Let's put in some pepper, and maybe a sprinkling at the end as well on the plate when we serve it.
Mettiamo il pepe. Ok, pepe. Ecco qua, a posto. Poi magari una spolverata alla fine sul piatto ce la mettiamo comunque. Ok, aggiungiamo il parmigiano.
And now we are adding the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, freshly grated. And we've run it through a fine colander as well to make sure it is extra fine. This will help us avoid cheesy clumps in the sauce. Always choose Parmigiano Reggiano, not Parmesan, which can refer to any number of aged cheeses in many countries, including the US.
Vellutato, leggermente più liquido, è pronto poi per essere inserito nella pasta.
You'll have to trust us. There's nothing like the real Parmigiano Reggiano. And now for our onion. We start with some butter. This was born to be a lighter recipe than the carbonara, but obviously it is not because the butter replaces the fat of the guanciale or pancetta.
Ma ovviamente non lo è perché il burro sostituisce il grasso del guanciale, praticamente, perciò.
So yes, it will be even more gourmet and rich, but certainly not lighter. In goes the onion.
Cipolla.
And we add a ladle of hot water. Simmering rather than frying this onion.
Ecco, mettiamo un goccettino d'acqua perché la facciamo stufare più che soffriggere questa cipolla.
Over medium heat.
Fiamma media. Appena questa si ritira, mettiamo dentro il prosciutto. Ecco, ci siamo. La cipolla è pronta. Adesso mettiamo il prosciutto e mettiamo le fettuccine.
And we'll put the fettuccine on to boil in the pot. 2 to 3 minutes is all that they'll need. Because this pasta is fresh, they will cook in just a few minutes. And we're adding just a bit of coarse salt to the pasta water. Not too much, because there is the prosciutto, which is quite salty. Here we are. The onion is ready, and now for the prosciutto.
Lo facciamo cuocere non per renderlo croccante come faremmo con il guanciale.
We are cooking the prosciutto here, not to make it crispy as we would do with the guanciale and a carbonara, but simply to reheat it and help the flavors mix together.
Non troppo perché c'è il prosciutto, sennò poi. Ecco qua, si è imbiondito, è pronto, questo è pronto, adesso appena arriva la pasta finiamo tutto.
And while the pasta is cooking, we're just finishing our mixture by adding a ladle, even a little bit less, of hot pasta water. That will raise the temperature of the eggs, making all this mixture really velvety.
Eleverà la temperatura, renderà tutto questo composto veramente vellutato e faciliterà poi l'incorporazione con tutto il resto. Vedete che bello? Guardate che bello. Ok, assaggiamo le nostre fettuccine, vediamo se sono pronte. Pronte! L'ultimo minutino glielo faccio fare in padella in ogni caso. Ok, ci siamo. Assembliamo tutto.
And here is our lovely fettuccine. We toss them in the pan for another minute, just to combine everything together. What an amazing smell.
Che profumo, è fantastica. Ok, ci siamo. Adesso mettiamo l'uovo e mantechiamo tutto.
And now we add the carbonara sauce and give everything a mix.
Ci siamo, questa è pronta, si impiatta.
And this is ready to plate.
Che bella. Non vedo l'ora. Non vedo l'ora.
What do you say we make an extra big portion? Dear Pope Pius XII, I think your request has been granted.
Questo è un piatto veramente sfizioso.
Such a treat.
E via, in bocca. È deliziosa, è veramente uno sfizio. Guardate, provate a fare questa qualche volta, anche solo per variare dalla carbonara, perché veramente.
Feel free to leave us a question or let us know how your papalina turns out in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell for new video notifications. And buon appetito!